Yeah, well, look, you see India's imports increased from 560 tons last year in the first 6 months, which was a massive year for them, up to 4,554 tons so far in 2024 in the first 6 months. That's a sevenfold increase over last year. You see China flying around, as I mentioned, buying up all the concentrate in the doré in unrefined fashion from the Latin American miners and sending it back to China to have it refined and taken off of the the marketplace in a very opaque way. You're seeing metal on the London Metals Exchange trading right now. They admit to trading 290 million ounces a day, but admit that on the LBMA that those numbers are 10 times understated, which means they're trading as much as 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day, or 3.5 times annual global mine supply. This is quite an effort to keep the price held down. At the same time, the biggest money in the world is going all around the globe, buying all that they can, importing all that they can. Um, and I find it interesting that we're going to have another structural deficit over 200 million ounces between supply and demand, mine supply and demand, and again, you're talking about not a peep. Yeah, there isn't a peep, but in my opinion, is that why the hell would eight Western banks be stepping on the price of silver to that degree? Because they need it to make weapons. And this military industrial complex is a whole hell of a lot more powerful and probably running the country to a greater degree than is our current president. And they're the ones pulling the strings. So if you allow eight banks to suppress the price in order to make weapons, well, that's a problem, but it never was a problem. Why wasn't it a problem?
India's silver imports have skyrocketed from 560 tons to a staggering 4,554 tons in just the first half of 2024, a seven-fold increase. Meanwhile, China is quietly sweeping up silver from Latin American miners, refining it and removing it from the market. But here's the twist. Western banks, including the US, are manipulating silver prices, trading up to 2.9 billion ounces daily, 3.5 times the global annual mine supply, to keep prices artificially low. Why? Because the military-industrial complex needs this precious metal for advanced weaponry. The global power struggle for silver is heating up, and the stakes are higher than ever. If you think this won't affect the markets, think again.
Because if you go back throughout my whole career since 1989, none of these entities across the globe ever stood for delivery. On COMEX, it represented 1% or less of contracts, and on the LBMA, it really never happened. It is something you can do, but these countries, 140-year-old LBMA and the COMEX in 74, most of these countries, the entire lifespan of both of these exchanges have been third world nearly. They haven't been sophisticated, coordinated, and motivated enough to stand for delivery, but they are beating us at our own game. They're beating us because they understand the significance of silver, that it should not be industrial, it should be strategic. You have a big movement in Canada trying to move it to that classification as strategic. You need it in so many of these applications. Why would eight banks be stupid as a mud wall in a rainstorm trying to hold down the price when countries like China are going all around the world buying concentrate and doré, when India is buying 800 million ounces over the last 2 years? These are really important things to consider. And I think what you're witnessing right now here is these countries are wise to what the West is doing. It's similar to the new foundation of the BRICS Grain Exchange. In it, the gentleman who's running it said, look, we produce and consume more wheat than the West does, yet we don't have a chance to have any say in the pricing of it. That's done on COMEX. But with the development of this new exchange, that will change. They know what we're doing on all of the world's commodities, and they're beating us at our own game because of the ability to stand for delivery. They're standing for delivery, where 8.1% of the entire float in London is delivered in the month of August. They are basically saying, we'll beat you at your own game without firing missiles. We'll just stand for delivery. So I would simply say silver is the best investment opportunity I've ever seen in 34 and a half years of business. And I don't think we've seen anything yet. If we can get above 32.50 and close, there's very little resistance between it and 50. And if you realize, to your point, that it's 6 times undervalued historically, well, that only puts it, I believe, at about a 16-to-1 ratio. I think, is that what you're talking about? You could argue that it's 11 or 12 times undervalued if you believe Keith Neumeyer telling us it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. Any way you look at it, you have an asset that is massively undervalued historically and geologically, that is seeing a massive expansion in uses in green and digital, ignoring the fact that military uses have a significant implication and are not recorded or reported. And yet you have stupidity of 8 banks trying to suppress its price when very sophisticated central banks are saying, thank you very much, we'll stand for delivery. So I don't think I've ever seen a better place. Decreasing supply above ground and below, increasing demand, and an artificial price that is distorting its historical and geological price ratio. I don't know if there's a better investment on the planet. And I mean that as God is my witness. Over the past 4 or 5 months, the cumulative volume on the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the futures exchange cumulative has increased almost 400%. And it has now surpassed the volume on COMEX. It is now the second most heavily traded market commodity exchange on the planet. It's becoming real. And I think at some point, when they drain the exchanges to the point where no one's going to deliver at these prices, I mean, China's priced silver as much as $3.50, $4 higher than the Western price for the better part of 6 months or longer. That is the price. Well, what happens if all of a sudden the West is not really going to want to deliver anymore at these prices, make good on these prices? You'll see a movement, I believe, to Shanghai, to Dubai, to Moscow, the real exchanges where these countries produce more, accumulate more, understand it more, and they'll set the price free. The only reason they're not bitching right now about the suppression is that they're the ones accumulating it all and using the suppression against us. It is stupid. That's a good word, because this is how they beat us at our own game. And if we don't allow them to stand for delivery, then the markets are immediately exposed as being fugazi. It's just like Bernie Madoff. Everyone clamored to get in with Bernie until they realized that those trying to liquidate were having a problem. Then everyone ran to liquidate. That's when it changed. So same thing here is that, yeah, the COMEX and the LBMA have this great prestige that is eroding. The rest of the world already understands that this fractionally reserved deal, where if you can trade 3.5 times annual global mine supply every day, most of it, over 90+% of it, in paper promises by commercial banks that are just wealthy enough, deep pocketed enough to paint their own picture that they want or create their own reality. It's not so easy to do that when you're talking sovereign nations who have just as deep of pockets. And that explains why you have 8 stupid, I like your word, stupid Western banks, commercial banks, suppressing the price to maintain the illusion that silver is just a pet rock, no reason to buy it. But if you need it to make high-tech weapons and the military industrial complex is in the business of war and they're the ones pulling the strings, yeah, absolutely. It's the only logical explanation. You take it out of the supply demand numbers. You had Senate subcommittee meetings in 42 saying you need 200 million ounces for it. You take it out of the numbers. You have a structural deficit. And why the hell in this tiny little market would 8 banks have the largest concentrated short position in any commodity traded? This is exactly why. It's because it's make-believe price in order to appease and continue to enrich the military industrial complex and their warmongering. It's the only explanation that I come up with. But to me, what it really says is that you can only manipulate a market over an extended period of time and push it in the direction it's going. This will end badly the way all manipulations do.
Now that you know the truth behind the global battle for silver and how it's manipulated, you won't want to miss the next crucial insight from this channel. Make sure to check out the next video to stay ahead of the curve and protect your investments. See you there.